What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Play It Out podcast, a competitive focused Age of Sigmar podcast. My name is Kyle, aka Creator Gator, known hater of battle tactics, and I'm here with the one and only, the scorer of battle tactics, James. James, how are you doing?
Good. Reader of rules, scorer of battle tactics.
We played a game last night, and you definitely scored more battle tactics than me.
I scored all of them, except when I double turned you.
That's true. That's true. But we're going to be talking about battle tactics tonight. It's going to be kind of bouncing off of our last podcast where we talked about the battle plans. In the battle plans, that's how you're going to get 60% of your points that you can score from the primary. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the other 40%, which is very important, which is the battle tactics. So this will also key off onto our next episode. Whenever we get to that, because again, we're adults and we travel a lot for work and vacation. We're going to be talking about deployment next time. So all three of these together will be a pretty good class on getting up to date on what's going on with this season.
That's a primer.
Little understanding of like how
how to get into the hobby, how to score points.
How to win games. Because if you're thinking about how to score points and the other person's just thinking about fighting not on circles, you're probably going to win.
Yeah. Doesn't really matter if all your stuff's dead if you have more points on the board.
True.
I've won games like that.
You definitely can win this game specifically like that, where it's like, well, my army is dead, but I scored more points. The army is really just a resource for you to score points, and your goal is to use them as efficiently as possible. If they ended up dying, that's good. You don't lose points for dying typically. You know what I mean? So you use them while you got them. But we're going to be talking about the 6 universal battle tactics and then the 2 battle tactics for each Grand Alliance. We're going to be starting with the universal battle tactics. James is going to be taking half. I'm going to be taking half. Because there's 14 of them, we will be a little pressed for time, so we will be covering them in roughly 3 to 4 minutes. We'll read the rule out specifically so everyone knows the full text, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we want to use it and how we're pre-planning it. So without further ado, James, take it away.
All right. So as you guys all know, I am a Trog enthusiast. We're in a Trog meta.
True.
First battle tactic is very Trog friendly. It's do not waver. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if 2 or more friendly units fought this turn and no friendly units were destroyed this turn, right? So basically, this is a nice middle of the game to end of the game battle tactic where you have these big blocks of units that are kind of in a scrum that isn't like you either have 2 anvils touching each other or 2 of the main hammers touching each other, but that you're not going to fully lose a unit. Like maybe you lose a couple, you trade a couple pieces and things like that, but neither of them are going to die. It's a nice, hey, I'm locked in scrum anyway. I don't have a lot of options to move to score points. This is a good opportunity for me to get points and with a situation I'm already either put myself into or have been put upon me. It's relatively easy to score. The hardest caveat here is that nothing can die. So you can't have a fragile unit a Carnosaur.
We played Seraphon, me versus Gets James last night, and in this moment, that was my battle tactic, and I charged a wounded Carnosaur into Scragrot, and Scragrot punched him in the face and killed him, and I lost my battle tactic.
Scragrot.
It can happen.
Melee,
crazy.
Slap hero.
Yeah, that is definitely the biggest downside is you physically cannot lose a single unit, a full unit. So
you need to be aware of countercharge. You need to be aware of unleash spell. You need to be aware of the shooting, the whatever it's called. Anything that's a couple wounds from death needs to be out of danger completely. Because there's a lot of ways to counterplay this battle tactic.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is you declaring this at the beginning of your turn. So as soon as you declare this, there's a couple battle tactics like that where it's as soon as you declare this, your opponent's mind starts racing for what are all of my tools in my arsenal that I can do to stop him from doing this. You know what I mean? So, and you can sometimes accidentally bumble it yourself, like I did. Or sometimes your opponent can think and make a dirty 11-inch countercharge and just get into your face with something you didn't expect. So
yeah, and kill a chaff unit and just to stop the battle tactic.
That's the biggest one: is kill a chaff hero or kill a chaff unit or a
foot hero or something.
Or a hero.
Yeah.
Lots of counterplay.
Yeah, so something to be aware of. Very good battle tactic though. It's there's a lot of you have to be you have to understand board state. You know what I mean? And where threat areas lie. but it is a very good battle tactic, and I scored this one almost every game.
Yep. It's a very good one for like something like Saurus Warriors, where they're not going to kill something, but they're also probably not going to die unless they're jumping into like a hammer.
Yeah. They're not going to die in one turn.
They're not going to die in one
turns.
turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's also one of those you could potentially bait yourself for, like, oh, just putting something into combat maybe incorrectly, just because you had to score the battle tactic. So watch out for that too.
Yeah. All right, Kyle.
All right. My battle tactic is take their land, pick a territory feature wholly or partially within enemy territory and wholly outside friendly territory. You complete this battle tactic if you control that terrain feature at the end of your turn. So it is a great one for, again, sort of that mid-game, potentially early game if the terrain feature is set up in a specific way. But it's very good for any sort of deep strike, very good for any sort of fast-moving units, very good for units if they have a unit near it, very good for charging at that unit and staying, like, fighting them and then staying near that. Notably, I looked up the rules for this specifically, and I'll mention it later. But you do hold terrain the exact same way that you hold objective markers. So things like banners count, OC matters, that kind of stuff. It's within 3 inches of that terrain, so you do want to make sure that you don't do the math incorrectly in your head when you pick this one. Also, again, be aware of the countercharge, be aware of the redeploy. They could very easily tow a 5 or 10 control score monster onto it, or a big unit that, like, you can't, you know what I mean? As soon as they touch that, like something with a banner, right? Banner and 5 models move over, and even if they don't get all of those models in, the banner still counts. So they might only have 2 models in, they still have control of 3.
Yeah,
like in that zone of influence. So definitely something to think about, especially if you have anything that deep strikes. Later on in the game, you can definitely like snag that relatively easily. Good zoom tight.
All right.
Also important to note, for the terrain control rules, you can control terrain and an objective at the same time. Terrain is not sticky though. You cannot, like, if you control terrain and
if you leave it, you don't keep it.
You don't keep it. So just things to think about when you're thinking about how you can score this battle tactic. But I like this battle tactic a lot, especially since I play a lot of armies that have deep strike or very fast moving units. It's something to do with those fast chaff units that you have, like birds or
Spider
pterosaurs,
Riders.
Spider Riders. It's perfect for just yeeting those guys over. Yeah. Maybe auto running them and keeping them over so they sit on like
your
turning piece.
Hunters of Halanji. You know what I mean? Coming out of, there's a lot of like ways to play this well.
Yep. There's a lot of board open usually in the mid game because the objectives are not in terrain. You know what I mean? So if they're scumming for the objectives, terrain's probably open. So if they're committing everything to objectives, start to think about this one. And I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah. Okay. So the next battle tactic we have here is Slay the Entourage. This is another pretty simple one. This harkens back to a lot of pick that thing, kill that thing days. This one is you pick a unit in your enemy general's regiment. You complete this battle tactic if that unit was destroyed this turn. So you basically point at something that's in the enemy's regiment because you have to pick. You also have to pick it, and then you say, "Hey, I'm killing that thing this turn." Again, this is like this is where kind of that counterplay of building your list matters, right? Because this is a battle tactic like, hey, if I only have 2 things in my general's regiment, like my general and then the thing that I want to have the priority target or whatever the bodyguard rule is going to be, my honor guard rule, those aren't going to be easy things to kill unless my general is like a little foot hero. So this is going to be a very, like, it seems very simple, but it's going to be one of those things that it's going to be, I think top tables is going to be harder to get because the things that this applies to is going to be 2 units. And it's like, if you're not in a specific situation to kill these 2 units, it's not necessarily an easy get.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be either kill their general or kill their best hammer that they want to put the seasonal rules on,
Yeah. So
I think, like, because this exists, like, that the seasonal rule that's like you get plus to hit, plus to wound on stuff in the general's regiment, and this rule is, in my opinion, basically makes it so that you have your general and you have one thing in your general's regiment, which is really unfortunate because like you lose the ability to take 4 things, which would be very nice because your general usually unlocks more of your army.
That's part of the whole appeal of the general is that you can then, bring more things in that regiment.
Play the game with the models you want.
Yeah, but you don't want to. So it's like...
Yeah, it's definitely... Just make sure you're very clear with your opponent because like James, you have 2 units of Spider Riders in your general's regiment.
And one that isn't.
And it's like you got to know which is which, otherwise, and like you want to be putting that one that isn't in a more aggressive position to score battle tactics and do screen and do the thing where they can die and come back. Also important to know, if things do die and recur, they're no longer part of the general's regiment because that is a deployment phase ability,
and it's a new unit,
so they're not affected by that. So just so you know.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
I did not know that. It's one of those things that I've asked that question before.
I made a deployment phase video. It's kind of dry, but it is on my YouTube channel. It talks about deployment phase and deployment phase abilities because I was very curious about it, and I know most people are going to blah 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 through it. So that is definitely a deployment phase ability, and that's one of the reasons why replacement units don't count for this specific battle tactic.
Yeah. But yeah, again, it is gettable. Very gettable. All these battle tactics are very gettable.
Yep.
It's just this one is more conditional. Like there's going to be specific situations. It's very easy. Outside of that, it's going to be very hard.
Yeah, I think it's definitely good into if you're going second because they might have less resource. They might have front loaded their command point usage, so they might have less resources to throw onto defensives. There's a lot of defensive
deploys or
There's a lot of defensive spells in the game that they might want to put on stuff. There's a lot of all defense, that kind of thing. Maybe they get buffs from being in position. So if you're going second, it might be a little bit easier because you're no longer fighting them at full strength. They might have positioned in ways that's not advantageous to them for at least defensive purposes.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yep. I have nothing else to say about that.
Yeah, find the thing, kill the thing.
Find the thing, kill the thing. Yep. All right, you got a cop.
Mine is seize the center. So you complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if 2 or more friendly units are within 3 inches of the center of the battlefield and are not in combat. And that last one is always the stickler. So this one is extremely easy.
Unless
so take their flanks and seize the center are probably the 2 best battle tactics that you can pick turn 1. Seize the center and take the flanks. Probably the 2 best you can pick turn 1. Seize the center is great because you can just do it and you can build your list to do it turn 1 very easily. So you want to put 2 units in the center that are kind of like they don't want to charge it. They're either going to be charging something like chaff, or they're charging something that debuffs them, or they're charging something that's so big that like one unbuff unit of whatever is right on that line, because it's going to be like roughly, it's going to be a 9-inch charge, depending on the deployment will put them 9 inches away basically on all of them. So if they put it right on the line, that's a 9-inch counter charge. And all they have to do is roll a 9-up, and you don't get that. They pay 2 CP, roll a 9-up, and then you don't get your battle tactic.
Yeah.
So
it actually can be a 12-inch charge because you only have to be within 3 of the center. You don't.
But you have to have 2 units within 3. So, and I don't know how to if you want to stack them. It depends on the base size. I was kind of thinking of them one after the other. I guess you could be like you said, 3 inches away over here, 3 inches away over here. So not exactly 9, probably more like a 10.
10. Yeah, 10 or 11. Yeah.
10 or 11. And it's still possible. And honestly,
listen, there's a lot of people that give out 3d6 charge,
That's true. Yeah, you don't do it if they have Kragnos.
Yeah.
If they have Kragnos and you're going first, they're going to countercharge with 3d6 and have 10 brutes in your face immediately. But yeah, like I said, great turn 1. You have to position for it. You have to position 2 units. You want to do something with fast. Notably, you can deep strike onto it. So something I've considered is just having units that deep strike right on that line, and then they're chilling. For like my Hunters of Hawanchi bolas, they give that out at 10 inches. So they could potentially come in, roll a 3 up in the shooting phase, and then the unit would have to countercharge with a D6 instead of 2D6, and then obviously can't do it. So there's so much choice that you can do, but definitely think about this in list building, and definitely think about this in deployment of if you do want to do this turn one. If you like, most likely your opponent's going to make you take turn one because the double is still around. It's still possible. And it's much more advantageous to have your opponent come to you and be like closer for you to do your things. So if you have a high drop list, definitely seize the center and definitely take their flanks, which we'll talk about later, is something that you want to think about in list building, and you want to think about it in deployment. And then I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah. My last universal one here is, I think, the hardest battle tactic on this page. It's attack on 2 fronts. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if you control 2 or more objectives that you did not control at the beginning of your turn, and at least one of those objectives was controlled by your opponent at the start of that turn. Right. So I have to steal an objective from you and take control of an objective that I did not control before that. At least one of them has to be controlled by you. So this is similar to what we were talking about before. This is a lot easier on missions where there's like 6 objectives, 8 objectives, because there's a lot of options for taking control of objectives that are either neutral or, don't, like, there's like a backline objective that you forgot about, and I just teleport something over there. There's a lot more play in that. It's a lot easier. It's a lot more reliable. On missions like, that have 4, like Border War, or like what we played last night, where there's we played, what was it? It was something
Battle for the Pass.
Like 4 objective missions. That's tough. Like their whole army is really on those objectives. So it's like, I can move my Spider Riders on, but I might get, I move my Chaff unit on or something on, and it's going to get countercharged and just die.
Yeah.
So like, it's tough because there's so much counterplay similar to a lot of these battle tactics, but it's also tough because these conditions are very specific. Like, it's like you have to, like, if there's not a situation where you can reliably take something from your opponent and also go get another one, like, this isn't easy. It's doable. Yeah. Again, all of these are gettable. These are much easier than battle tactics of past.
Yeah.
Like, but it's not, the turn one, understanding what you can do turn one is key. Deploying in such a way that you can do that is also key. The mid game ones are going to be much more conditional, and you need to kind of like, you need to be basically playing for options the whole time, and that's why like little fast cav units or little like, infantry units that you could drop out of the sky. These are things that are going to win you games, because a lot of these are not about killing. They're not about like one of these requires you to kill something.
Yeah, so you can deep strike onto an objective they're not standing on, or go run to an objective, and then you have to go take one from them that they control.
Yes. Yeah, but I'm saying, like, of all of these universal battle tactics, one of these battle tactics requires you to kill something. Everything else is just either, like, using fight abilities or go stand somewhere on the board, So
I will say this about this one. This is the, like, we've kind of talked about secondaries and battle tactics in this game and other games, and we always love the battle tactics that are like, they reward you for playing the game. This one, like, take their flanks and seize the center. Sometimes, like, you could seize the center, but that's in the opposite direction of where the primary is. This one is actually like, hey, go play the primary.
Yeah, go play the primary. Go steal objectives. That's what you're doing anyway. You need to score primary, Yeah.
It's harder to get, you know what I mean? Because you have to, like, know the math. You have to know the math when you're looking at the board, which is very difficult because, again, it's a dice game. Something could spike hot or something could spike low, and then all of a sudden they have way more control than you thought they did. They could also hit the long bomb redeploy or long bomb countercharge to just 100%. Mess up your plan. So there are times where it's very clear.
This is highly conditional. I think this is the hardest one, like, of the 6.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's definitely the one where you either see it and it's very obvious that you're like, oh, yeah, of course I'm going to do this, or you're going to be like, yeah, I'm not touching that.
Yeah, there's no way for me to do this, like, feasibly. Yep.
True.
All right, I'll ping pong back to you, brother.
Next one is take the flanks. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if you have at least one friendly unit within 6 inches of each short battlefield edge. None of those units are wholly within friendly territory, and none of those units were set up this turn. So there's a lot of important asterisks in this, and it's slightly different than the one that we've played in the past. So the big one is just unit within 6. It used to be wholly within 6, which was very, very difficult, if you remember correctly. You can't set up and take it. So this is if you do have deep strikes and you want to score this, maybe you deep strike them somewhere a turn ahead, so that they can do this the next turn.
Yeah, this is a setup battle tactic. You can't just do it, you know?
Yeah, this one is and the whole, none of those units are wholly within friendly territory. Important about the wholly, because like you can just toe out and you can just toe to the 6. You know what I mean? So it is like those asterisks make it much more forgiving than I initially thought when I first read this. I remember even the first game that you and I played, I messed this up because I was like, oh, I can't do it. And you pointed out like, no, you have to be towing out, and you have to be towing to the 6. So as long as you can do that, this is also a pretty good turn 1 battle tactic. If you have anything that moves, if you have anything that like has the ability to move 9, and I say 9 specifically because that means with your run roll, you're at least going to get a 1, and then it'll put you to 10, and then you'll be towing, off the you're probably on that like perfect 50-50.
Yeah. Like if your movement characteristic is 9 or more, you can auto get this.
Yes. So think about having some potentially chaffy 9-inch movement units that can just get this on turn 1 automatically. You can obviously pay for 1 unit to go. So you might have a fast unit and at least like a 5-inch move. 5 plus 6 is 11. So I guess anyone really, they can move 4, and you could do this if you want to pay for it. Pay to auto run 6, and then you have your fast.
It's only one of them though.
Side.
Yeah.
You'd have to have a fast unit, somebody that runs 9 on the other side. But this is definitely, if the map is correct, and I know we talked about it in the battle plan. Anytime there was a battle plan that I was like, oh, I can do this easily, I liked it. So definitely think about it. Definitely think about the units in your list that can do this like after landing, and I'll talk more about that when we talk about the order battle tactics. But it requires some setup. There's not as much counterplay besides them just killing your stuff on your turn.
Yeah.
They could set up to counter, like they could potentially, that's another reason why you kind of want to do this early, is because if you're doing it turn 1, then they can't, there's much less likelihood that they hit the 9-inch
around you. Like there's no way, like it's very much like do you want to like, well, somebody takes the center, somebody takes the flanks. You know what I mean? It's not both.
Yeah, true. And like whatever unit that they're doing that to, you just got to make sure they can't kill it, because that's like the only counterplay for this is if you take the flanks and they can potentially kill it, because you do. You don't have to pick it, which is nice. That's one of the things that there's a lot of these where it's you pick a unit to kill, or you pick a unit to do a thing, or you pick a terrain feature to take. This one is just have a unit. So you could throw your whole army on the side. You know what I mean? And like, they try to kill all of it, and
can't get it. You can't kill all of us.
You can't kill all of us. Yeah, exactly. We'll get the battle tactic. So this in Caesar Center, definitely good for turn 1. Definitely things to think about, and definitely good for like list building. This is where these two are the list building ones, and having a pre-plan
and deployment checks, like
hard
deployment checks.
Literally. I still need to do this myself, but I highly recommend anybody who plays this game, like if you have a table, like literally just do a deployment, like try to score max, like set up a game against yourself, against nobody, and try to score max points, because you'll realize like sometimes you just deploy incorrectly, and guess what? You literally can't do this stuff if you don't deploy correctly. But that will finish it up for our universal battle tactics. We're going to move on to the faction-specific battle tactics.
Oh, yeah.
James, do you want to start us off with your favorite one?
You know what? I just might. So we're gonna start with destruction because it's the most important. We have the good one and the bad one. We'll start with the bad one. Time to get stuck in. Highly conditional battle tactic. Pick 3 friendly units that are not in combat and wholly within the friendly territory. In the first sentence, 2 conditions.
Mm-hmm.
You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if each of those units wholly outside your territory has used the fight ability. So not only do all 3 have to be within your territory to start, right, and not in combat, but at the end of your turn, they all have to be wholly outside of your territory, and all have fought this turn. 3 units, right? Not gettable, really.
No,
ever.
It's an iron. I think we talked about it like way in the past, before when everything was just coming out. This is an Iron Jaws.
I know, but it's like even Iron Jaws, like they're big units. Like
big units, yeah.
You're not getting this. In addition, like maybe megas, maybe mega gargants. Other than that, I don't see this actually happening. And then we have the good one, the cunning approach. You pick an enemy unit that is in combat with a friendly unit, and a friendly unit that is not in combat. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if that friendly unit was in combat with that enemy unit this turn, and that enemy unit was destroyed. Much more gettable, only requires 1 of your units, and is way less conditional, right? Mm-hmm. Like, pick something that's in combat already, charge something else in, kill it. Easy. Yep. Way better. The first one is, like, actually ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've been, like, handedly winning games, and there's no potential to get this battle tactic.
To be fair, you definitely could have scored that battle tactic in the previous game if you didn't roll all below 5s on 3 charges.
But even that, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that happens though. You know what I mean? Like, that's because I also get 3 units in. I get 3 units in. Yeah, you know, like
it's brutal. Yeah, no,
it's not gettable.
It's definitely nice. It's basically like one of your units is holding like a target, and you're like, all right, boys, get him, and then they all come in and kill it.
Yeah, you don't need your unit doesn't need to survive. Like, I could charge like if my trogs are holding something down, or I have like a big anvil unit holding something down, and I have a little chaff unit that just charges in, I'll have them fight first. You know what I mean? And then if they die, I don't care. They use the fight ability. You know?
Yeah.
It's not like this weird scenario. Like, remember last season when we had that weird battle tactic where it was like, oh, you have to fight but not kill something, you know? Or
I hated that so much.
Yeah, like it's like that's like a weird condition. Like this, like it doesn't have that condition anymore. There is a condition that like you have to like basically pile on. You know what I mean? But that's very gettable. Like, I think it's very gettable. You know what I mean? So, I think it's a very good battle tactic. I think that I'm glad we got one.
Yeah, I feel like I think every faction got one very good one and one like very conditional one. Yours is the most
mine's the worst. Like but they're all like a lot of them are like gettable. Like the one like get stuck in is just not gettable. Like it's just bad. But do you want to
territory thing is the hardest part because like how many times like do you accidentally just tow over?
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy.
Easy. True.
All right, Kyle, you want to talk about your favorite boys?
I will. I am as much as I am a Nurgle boy. I also am an Order boy.
You're a filthy chaos lad.
I know. But I am also a filthy lizard lad. So I will start with the Order battle tactics. So the one that I want to talk about probably the most is Reclaim the Realms. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if there are 1 or more friendly units wholly within each quarter of the battlefield and more than 6 inches from all enemy units. So this is perfect for your deep strike units. If you have units, almost every army in the game has something that can start off the board and come in the board with some caveats. This is a great battle tactic for that, as the game either they've started 9 inches away and you can just plop them right on the line and be outside of 6, but technically in the quarter. It is holy, so smaller base sizes are good for that. You can also like as the game progresses, drop some things over there. Also, as the game progresses, if you have units that are pushing into their side of the board, you know what I mean? Like maybe you did a flip flop and now you have stuff, but it's definitely one of those things that you have to be thinking about because this is a very easy one to get. It's just be in 4 quarters and not in combat. A lot of order stuff has either deep strike or very fast units that can do this. And the nice thing is there's no caveat that you cannot take the flanks, right? Where you can't do that if you got set up. This one's perfect for setting up. So this, I always like when I see this one, it's perfect for reclaim the realms. So you spread out. And when you spread out, ideally, put those guys near the short board edges outside of your territory, because then you automatically have take the flanks next turn unless they want to do something about it. And then they're probably committing to something that's like a very small, Hunters of Huanchi unit or something that's 80 points, So you make them reduce their efficiency of the stuff that they have on the board to try to interrupt a future battle tactic, which you might just turn around and be like, I'll seize the center, or maybe I'll kill what's it called? I'll slay the entourage or something like that. So the other one is much more simple and more straightforward. It's called Slay the Tyrants. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if an enemy hero was slain this turn by a combat attack made by a friendly unit. So kill a hero in combat. Super easy.
Very doable.
Very doable. You definitely want to be looking at any small foot heroes that they've brought along that you can just very easily bump a big guy into and just eat them up. Sometimes that maybe they have one unit that you really need off the board, and you just have to kill that. But if you're doing it on a big thing, be very careful with your math.
Oh yeah, because if you don't kill it, you don't get it.
If you don't kill it, you don't get your battle tactic. You know what I mean? As soon as they have a ward, as soon as they have save stacking, as soon as they have anything that like
unrendable saves,
saves, yeah, very popular.
You can just spike a roll, or they can just spike a roll, and it's nothing happens.
Yeah, so this one is you try to go pick off a little hero, make it mathematically unlikely that you're gonna fail, yeah. Because if you throw stuff into big heroes, sometimes you just whiff.
Yeah, you just try to soften them up or try to apply damage. Get somebody within one shot distance that you're overkilling them.
Yep, 100%. Just to make sure you get that battle tactic. It is one of those things where this one can, again, you're targeting them, and although we don't have best day ever anymore, so they can't just dump everything. They still have probably defensive resources that they can dump into and save the hero. They could also redeploy. They could all, you know what I mean? Or use a spell like Hand to Gork to get them out of there.
Yeah.
I've had that happen to me once or twice. You know what I mean? It's very scary. If you don't know all of the tools that they can use to both defensively buff the guy that you're trying to kill or just yeet them out, you can very easily fail a battle tactic like this.
Oh yeah.
So that is one thing that's take the flanks. Doesn't rely on your opponent has some counterplay.
It's a non-engagement battle tactic.
It's a non-engagement battle tactic. Slay the reclaim the realms. Also super non-engagement, right? Because even if they charge you, nothing in the battle. Oh, it does say within 6, so they could countercharge you.
Oh yeah.
For reclaim the realms, they could very easily countercharge you. That could be a thing, just so you know.
Or redeploy within range.
Or redeploy within 6.
If they roll a 4 up on the redeploy, they're within 6.
That's true.
Only if you're outside 9. Only if you're on the edge of outside 9.
On the edge. Yeah.
Because you can get as far away as you want.
Yeah. It's not as... I keep, unfortunately, confusing this with the old Stormcast battle tactic, which was... they made this one when they were Stormcast aren't above a 50% win rate. Let's give them a battle tactic to do. So they become 50%. And I think they grew to 49 or something like that. They got close.
Comfortable
because of this battle tactic. It was a guarantee. Very easy with our ability. But now redeploy and countercharging this, so it could be a little bit worse. So, but I like this one into. I like reclaim the realms into either take the flanks or take their land. Very easy to do. Big fan of that.
Yeah, and it's a good setup one too. Yeah, it's a very good hey, turn 1 I want to do this, so I set up everything else.
Yep, you have so many. If you have if you're playing Order and you have Deep Strike, you have so many options for stuff. You're basically waiting for your opponent to be out of position, and then you just start slapping battle tactics, and that frees up the rest of your list. who are not scoring battle tactics to go play the primary,
Yeah.
which I like. I'll bounce it over to you.
All right, cool. Yeah, so we have the death battle tactics left. These ones, I don't think are too hard. We have Marked for the Grave. You pick a non-hero enemy unit that has not had any models slain from it. If there are no non-hero units, enemy units on the battlefield, you can pick any enemy unit. So this is like it's not punishing in the way of like agency in the game. So it's nice that you can kind of pick at the beginning or the end of the game. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if that unit was destroyed. So you basically pick something, right? It can be a chaff unit. It can be, it can be their big anvil unit that you've been slugging with the whole game. If there's
like 2 wounds left.
Yeah, exactly. It has to have no models removed from it.
Okay, so not. So you have
yes.
to you have to 100 or 0 them.
Yes. And it's so you do have to 100 to 0 them. So this is really good for like a chaff. Like if you're like hammers running into their screen or something like that.
Yep.
This is a good battle tactic, like for that like first turn or second turn.
Yeah.
The next one is called Inevitable Demise. This one's crazy. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if 2 or more friendly units are wholly within enemy territory and 9 inches away from all enemy units. And none of those units were set up this turn. So basically, you just walk them over the line.
It's just within. It's not wholly within.
It's what do you mean? It is to 2 or more friendly units that are wholly within enemy territory.
Okay.
So it's like I think this is like the end of the game when you have like a squad of 5 hex wraiths or like these like little flying banshees or whatever. Yeah. And you just like basically yeet them into the opponent zone and have them like off in a corner.
Yeah. That's interesting because because like zombies and skeletons come back, right? And you could like have a grave site and then like pop back up.
Yeah.
But I think set up.
Yeah, it can't be that turn. But you can pop them up and run them into a corner, and then it's the next turn's battle tactic. Yep.
Or it's like a couple skeletons and a couple zombies, and they're not really going to do anything on an objective or for damage. So just retreat them and go run into a corner, and then
hold a train feature on your way out, and then run into a corner. That's 2 battle tactics, like legitimately. Yeah. So these are both very, very gettable, I think. Like, I mean, the having to 0 something like 0 to 100 something is tough. There's going to be specific situations where that's doable. But other than that, this is like, these ones are pretty good. Like I wish that the destruction ones were as easy as these. Again, I also think like thinking about Soul Blight, thinking about like how fast Nighthaunt is, like this would be tougher for Bone Reapers, but like a lot of death, I feel like plays into both of these pretty well,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, I definitely feel like they've taken the flavor of each Grand Alliance and trying to like bake it in there. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, for destruction, they're overestimating how destructive you guys are.
How fast we can move. Like,
how fast?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's the hardest thing. Isn't like it's not like getting 3 units in and doing damage. It's getting them out of my deployment zone and making 3 charges. Like, yeah.
It's the like, all right, everyone hold and go. Okay, go.
We all go at the same time.
Like all go at the same time. Yeah, and that's rough because like you don't have to be in combat with 3 separate units with the destruction one. Not to go back too far, but you don't have to be in combat with 3 separate units of destruction. You can just charge into one thing. Yeah. And as we've talked about, I think previously, is because of how the fight action works, if they made a charge, they're still eligible to make the fight action.
If they survive.
If they survive, that's true. They will have to actually fight, right?
Yeah.
But like if there's a big screen, you know what I mean, of like plague bearers or like source warriors or something like that, that's like long.
Something that I don't care about.
Boom, 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 charge 3 things into it, fight with like your biggest guy to like cut it down a little bit and then fight with everybody else.
They're probably going to live.
I see how you could do that. It's harder.
It's like, I feel like it's like in the best scenario, it's like a 20% tile that it goes off. You know what I mean? Like it's just not great.
Yeah. Oh, anyway.
The death ones, Marked for the Grave, picking a chaff unit. It's not the easiest, but I think it's like a mid tier in like terms of difficulty. And then the Inevitable Demise, I don't think is hard at all. Just being outside of 9 in their deployment zone at some point.
Outside of 9 in the deployment zone, within the deployment zone, does require you to either kill a bunch of their stuff or have their stuff be on your side of the board, because like that 18-inch basic string between two enemy units, they can spread out pretty far. So it's
Those
like
are big
definitely
bubbles.
not a turn one.
No. This is like end of the game. Like end of the game, I don't have a lot of options left, and I need to score battle tactic here. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
These are both kind of mid-tier, I guess. They're a little more like both kind of mid-tier. Yeah.
True. I do like it though.
Yeah.
Going on to Chaos. So we have the Offering of Carnage. So you complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if 2 or more enemy units were destroyed this turn. Pretty simple. Kill 2 units. I like it. I mean,
kill 2 units.
Kill 2 units. Does what it says on the tin. Doesn't say anything about like, and you can't die or on an objective or anything like that.
No caveats. Yeah.
No caveats. That's what we like to see. The second one is Ordained Charge. So you pick an objective controlled by your opponent. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if 2 or more friendly units charge this turn. 1 or more of those units are contesting that objective, and you control that objective. Okay, so much more caveats on this one. But it doesn't involve you killing anything. It's just charging.
Yeah.
So you pick an objective controlled by your opponent, and then you complete this battle tactic if 2 or more friendly units charge this turn, and 1 of those are contesting an objective, and you control that objective. So this one I've done before with it. It works great with the Nurgle flies because they get bonuses for charging onto an enemy controlled objective. They get +1 damage on the charge, and they get +1 rend if they're charging against an opponent who's contesting a objective that the enemy controls. So perfect for this. I love this one because of that. Otherwise, it's very like, one, you have to charge 2 things, so make sure you're close and you roll good, right? The other one is you have to the enemy has to be contesting a unit, so you can't just walk onto an empty like
you can't walk into an empty objective and do this. You need to have like an enemy near it, and then be able to charge onto it. Because they have to charge. So an enemy unit has to be. You have to charge. You have to complete the charge. One of them has to land on the objective, and then you have to take control of the objective. Like this is hard. Like this isn't like it's not undoable. I think this is probably more of like a 40 percentile to 50 percentile. You know what I mean? Like this is going to go off half the time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of conditions.
There's a lot of conditions. I did it in the game that I played Nurgle against you.
Yeah, and I think you did it successfully. It was
I did it successfully because it is not like. It's not super difficult because, again, if they're sitting on objective, which they're probably going to, you just send your hammer at it. That's what it exists for. It exists to kill your opponent. And if you get to kill your opponent and take an objective from them,
and score a battle tactic. Yeah.
And score a battle. That's like bonus on bonus for doing the thing that you need to do anyway. The tricky part is if they're sitting on it with something like you got to start doing damage calculations with that.
Yeah. You have to understand your output. You have to understand their defensive profiles.
You have to understand those 2 things, and then you really have to understand the control score. Because if like they spike in some weird way with their control score, and they just happen to take it like in the battle plan that we had for Ticket from the Past, the underdog gets +2 to each unit's control score.
Yeah, it's huge.
So I had 2 units on a thing, right? And it was only 1 dude, but it doesn't matter. It was like that one little Saurus warrior counted for 3. And then, my other unit on there was getting +2. So it was like, if you would take this against that, you have to be very conditioned. Like, remember all the control score bonuses that are coming at it, because you might accidentally undo your math and like not kill the right amount of models, and now you lose it by 1.
Yeah.
And I know you're already doing that math anyway because you want to control the objective, but it's just something to think about that wasn't in the last edition.
Keep in mind. Keep in mind.
Keep in mind. So overall, I like them because Chaos has a lot of units. Like think of Varangard. You know what I mean?
Like very fast. They want to be charging.
You want to charge.
Yeah.
You want to charge. You want to take objectives. And then the kill 2 is pretty easy just because there's no asterisks on it, which is really nice. But it is like you do have to kill.
Do you have to pick?
No.
That's so nice.
You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if 2 or more enemy units were destroyed. Just
amazing.
At all.
That's great.
At all. It's good. It makes me like once I saw all the battle tactics and we had everything, I was like, okay, I like that. It like definitely like makes me want to play Chaos because it makes me be aggressive with pushing onto objectives and killing enemy units, which is what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
So, in the final summary section, I know we initially we both were like, man, I want battle tactics to be gone. And I think we kind of like accepted the fact of battle tactics because they became more easier and more about understanding counterplay. So I think that lessens the blow a little bit for us. I think like this is a more fun game to play specifically because of the counterplay. I like that.
Yeah, it makes the battle tactics harder without it being baked into the rules, you know?
Yep, which is dope.
Yeah.
I love that. I hate having to complete the little asterisks.
Yeah, like I don't want to go on a little mini annoying quest. I would like to like play the game. Yeah.
And if my opponent like does something in the game or that I wasn't seeing or wasn't expecting and they, sneak one under the table on me, sometimes that happens. Now remember it. But thinking about battle tactics overall and all the ones that we've talked about, what's your thought when you start to look at the board and you start to look at how you want to score your battle tactics throughout the game? Like, do you sit there and think about like, okay, I want to do these battle tactics here, these battle tactics here, these battle tactics here, or like walk me through your thought process of like when you're looking at the board and it's your turn. How are you picking the battle tactic?
I mean, you definitely like, especially we'll talk about this a lot during deployment as well. But like during deployment phase, you have to have one of those two on lock. You know what I mean? You have to have, or one of those three, really.
Especially if you have 3 or more drops.
Yeah, like your first job is getting that first battle tactic. After that, the board state will change, and there's other ways to get the rest of the 6. You know what I mean? Yep. Or like your conditional ones for your Grand Alliance. But seize the center. Take the flanks, and then or take their land. Those are your first 3. You know, if you can complete one of those safely without losing too much, kudos to you. You're always looking to do that. After that, it's very much like I look at take their land as probably the easiest battle tactic on here, and I'm basically trying not to score that as long as I possibly can. Like, I want to have that in my back pocket for the end of the game when I'm like, I only have 2 units left. I'm like losing hard and I'm losing like I'm losing gas in the engine hard. And like, I need to keep up. I need to keep scoring, you know? So it's definitely one of those things that I like to keep that one pocketed if I can. Do not waver, slay the entourage, an attack on 2 fronts. Attack on 2 fronts, I feel like, is in that like second stage when you guys are vying for like your home objective and then like a second like flank objectives that you're both kind of like skirmishing over. Slay the entourage can happen at any point. That's just kind of an opportunity that presents itself to you. Attack on 2 fronts is very much a mid game thing. Like you can't score it unless they have objectives too. Do not waver is also a mid game thing. Like you're fighting, like you're already fighting, and you need to basically like survive. So it's like you don't want to be towards the end of the fighting; you want to be at the beginning of the fighting. And then I don't know, like the specific ones for destruction, like cut and approach is my like okay, that's another one I don't really want to use if I don't have to right away. I want to be using that like later on in the game when I don't have as many options. Because like some of these like seize the center and take the flanks both require 2 units, you know. And when you're 2 units, when you're later in the game, you might not have 2 units in position to go touch the flanks or touch the center. You know what I mean? Like you might be fighting on objectives and you can't quite get there, or like they're already in combat and you can't get them away. You know, so the ones that seem very simple but you need to prepare for them in the beginning of the game, and you can't count on them later in the game when you have less options, you know? So you need to make sure you're scoring those when you have the option, you know? That's like, I love take their flanks. I think it's my favorite turn 1/1. There's a lot of deployment maps that make it harder, so you can't get it turn 1. But if that's an option, I usually try to take that instead of seize the center.
How fast are Spider Riders?
10.
Perfect.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're literally amazing. They're like that's my number one, because it's not only like, because my biggest issue with seize the center is it's a great battle tactic, but you're kind of like giving your opponent something easy to charge. You know what I mean? So like whatever you're throwing, not that like they're not going to countercharge you on your turn, like you're probably going to score that tactic. But now, like let's say you're 11 inches away from my line, I move 6, you're a 5-inch charge away, And like if I roll like I did yesterday, you're still safe.
You're safe, but
I didn't roll it for context. I didn't roll over a 6-inch charge. It was crazy.
Yeah.
The
And
whole game.
you rolled boxcars on 2 spells.
On 2 spells. Crazy.
On 2
Yeah.
spells.
I was casting my face off, but I literally couldn't charge. So it was a very, very interesting game. Dice are crazy.
Dice are crazy.
Yeah, I think that the understanding the flow of the game, and again, this is also, I'm speaking from the point of like my army plays very castly. I'm relatively slow, so I move forward slowly.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I'm thinking about it. You have to understand like what your army wants to do and like where, like how in your kind of tempo of game, like how you, what are the 2 battle tactics in each kind of phase that you're looking to do, you know?
I think like your thought process might change a bit if you start playing like Idneth.
Oh, 100%,
you know what I mean?
because
Where
I'm not
it's like super fast. But
I'm kind of like
tanky.
I'm holding back for like turn 3. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like I'm like I don't really want to fight you until I'm gonna fight you. You know? Like
yeah. One important caveat about Do Not Waver is you could if they have like a chaff unit, you could 100% to put 2 units into that one chaff. Sorry, you could 100%
punch
2 units into that one chaff.
Fucking whack that microphone.
And then you just if you kill it with your 1 hammer unit, you can still technically fight with your other guys. You just get a free pile-in movement to like you still technically have fought because you just got to fight with 2, and obviously no friendly units were destroyed.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like you don't have to be in the scrum and be like, okay, I've calculated that I'm not going to kill you, but you're not going to kill me. You can just like absolutely destroy one thing with
and you
one
still
thing.
get to use the fighting
As long as you charged,
Mm-hmm.
you still get to fight. So if you didn't charge and you killed it with the unit that did charge, you don't get to fight. So you screwed up.
Yeah, order of operations is important.
Order of operations is very important. I definitely think like people need to read the battle tactics, like read them, like kind of how we did. We read it word for word and then go back and like understand where those caveats are.
Oh yeah.
Because you can tripped up very easily in the heat of the moment where you assume that things work the way that you think they do and then they don't.
Yeah. There's also like I to kind of like because we did a battle tactics video before, and this is when like some of them were like they released some. We
didn't have all of them. I think we had one for each faction, but not all of them.
But I honestly think that our assumptions before were very much like, oh, these seem very simple. They're very gettable.
We didn't know countercharge existed.
Exactly, and we knew. Yeah, I think we did know that countercharge. I think we knew what some of the commands were. We knew that there was going to be a lot more interactivity from the opponent, right? Yep. And I think that exactly kind of what we were talking about earlier, and we didn't make this prediction, but this is like we saw the battle tactics were very, very simple.
Yes,
we were very worried that it was like, oh, you're just going to max battle tactics, like everybody's going to max for the whole game, right? So the battle tactics themselves are much simpler than I think they've ever been, right? Perfect. The problem or like the complexity of the battle tactics and the hardness of the battle tactics comes into play with counterplay, right? Yep. If you're playing an opponent that understands what you need to do to score, it becomes like very like they can start like spending command points to roll dice to mess you up, you know? Yep. And that's a big deal when it's 4 points, you know?
Yeah. It is. That's something we didn't touch on, but most battle plans are and I think all of them are battle tactics are for 4 points, and you can score max 6 on primary.
Yes, yeah. So it's 40% of your points each turn.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that the battle tactics become harder the more skilled your opponent is.
Yes. And this is definitely a system that scales with the skill of the player.
Yes.
On both sides.
100%.
For counterplay and for play.
Yeah. Like if we're like 100%. If I'm like an inexperienced player and I'm just using my command points to buff my units and like rally and like do things that like don't really mess with you, they just kind of like make me stronger. It's much easier for you to score. You know what I mean? Because I'm not like moving into your zone or countercharging you or like trying to kill a unit with unleash spell or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that as much as it will create some feel bad moments, you need to look at your commands and understand what will stop battle tactics. Like that's the difference between people in mid tables and top tables.
Yeah. Literally counterspell has existed for so long in a game like Magic because it encourages interactivity, and that scales with like counterspell very much scales with how skilled the person using counterspell is, because they're going to use it in a way that's going to stop something very powerful, and they're going to stop it in a way where you can't stop their counterspell. You know what I mean? Like, they know what your deck does. They know they're like waiting for it, and they're going to play it. And they're going to be like, oh, I stopped the thing that you wanted to do for a very efficient cost. You know, a charge is not like the choose CP to charge in your opponent's charge phase. It's not cheap and it's not guaranteed, but like there's a lot of times where you could just stop battle tactics. That's the biggest one. That's going to stop battle tactics all day, every day if you don't think about it. 2 TP is a lot to pay, and sometimes they won't do it. But if it makes a difference between you winning and losing the game, sometimes you got to do it.
Oh yeah,
you know. The biggest thing I want people to understand about this game, and we'll talk a lot more about this in the deployment and like how to win, you know what I mean, is Age of Sigmar is a movement game with combat mechanics. Almost all of these battle tactics are movement based and positioning based. You know, you mean even the fight ones are also movement and positioning based, because you have to be there. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you have if I have Kragnos versus some Spider Riders, if Kragnos isn't in position to fight them, he can't score that battle tactic.
Yeah. Or like fight them on an objective, or fight them on an objective. He's in your deployments and then not in the deployments. Like, it's like a lot of these have caveats where you have to really understand that where you are and where you need to be and what your threat range is.
Yeah. And not only is this game a movement game with combat mechanics, but it is it's a risk mitigation game. You know what I mean? So like maybe you do a battle tactic where you're within 11 inches and you basically like say, all right, if you pay 2 CP and roll boxcars or an 11 or a 12, you know what I mean? That's a risk.
It is.
You know, it's like a good risk. Like, I don't know what the percentage is on that, but it's not great.
Yeah.
But it's very much a risk mitigation game. So there will be times where you're like, this isn't 100% guarantee. There's going to be a lot of times where you're like, this isn't 100% guarantee, but this is the most percentage that I can throw at this exact moment. And it's either it's either I take a risk or not score a battle tactic. You got to find where that risk is lowest. The other thing is why I say it's a movement game with combat mechanics, and other people could potentially lean in and be like, that's not really a war game then, is it? Is your army is designed to score you points. And we'll talk more about this next episode, but the whole point of your army is I want to use my points that I have in my list to score as many points as physically possible. A lot of that time is spent by scoring battle tactics, standing on objectives, and ideally removing your pieces so you can't do the same. You know what I mean? But it's definitely one of those things where it's it's a log rolling game where the whole point is to stay on the log. If you can do something that can prevent your opponent from staying on the log, that's a benefit. But if you're playing a game where you're just scoring all the points, you still win. You know what I mean? Regardless of whether or not you push your opponent off the log.
Yeah, you can get tabled and win a game.
You can definitely get tabled and win a game very easily because you just use your people more efficiently and use them in positions where your opponent maybe was out of position and they couldn't score points. I was, again, in our game yesterday, I was out of position. I wasn't out of the game, but I was out of position in a way that I just dropped a lot of points because I was trying to do a thing and I spent a lot of time trying to do that thing and it didn't pay off. You know what I mean? And it was because I positioned incorrectly. So that's definitely something that I can harp on a lot more next time, but positioning is so important in this game. It's almost
the most important decision.
It is the most important decision.
Yeah. Agreed. Battle tactics.
Battle tactics were
they're here to stay.
They're here to stay. They're seasonal, so get used to them.
Yeah.
But overall, I don't dislike them.
I like them a lot more than they were. The state they're currently in is a lot more fun, I think.
Yeah. Overall, I like the difficulty being on the counterplay. One, because it scales with the opponent. I think Age of Sigmar 4 is way more skill expressive than Age of Sigmar 3. I think Age of Sigmar 3 kind of leaned into the old 40k where it was if you build a good list, you have a good plan from the start, you know the battle plan, and you basically can just kind of
You just do the same thing every game. It doesn't matter who
this, and then I win. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This is much more like you have to play with your opponent. You can play with your opponent, even though they might not want you to, and mess up their battle tactics.
Yeah.
And like reduce their score down. But and granted, we're only a month into the edition, but what we've been seeing from a lot of the tournaments recently is almost everybody, even the 5-0s and the 4-1s, are only scoring 4 turns of battle tactics. There's very, very rarely are you ever going to score exactly 5, either because you chose to take the double or you are in a position where you just can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or they stop you, you know? Think about it like in that, like never going to you obviously want to score 5 battle tactics as much as you physically can. But statistically, it's looking like it's more likely that even at the top tables, people are only scoring 4. So think about it like that too. That's something that, especially us, when we started looking back, we were like, "Oh, we'll score 5. Everyone's going to score 5.
Score 5 all the time. It's easy. So easy. Yeah.
Speaking of, if someone if I have that like ordained charge where I have to charge into an opponent that's contesting an objective, if they redeploy off the objective, they're no longer contesting it. That's going to feel so bad.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm saying. It's gonna create a lot of feel bad moments, but it's like that's how you kind of got to play the game now. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of feel bad moments like in warfare.
Yeah,
I guess.
Well, it's also but it's also not like a lot of times it's not like, oh, it's like I redeployed 1 inch and now like you can't do your thing. Most times it's like I need. I'm still very jet lagged. I'm gonna roll dice at you, and like if I roll high, like if I roll like exactly what you said, 10, 11 on my counter charge, that's gonna mess you up. If I roll a 6 on my redeploy, that's gonna mess you up.
Yeah,
you know. But I'm paying my command points to roll those dice to mess you up.
Yeah, definitely. The goal is to pick battle tactics in specific ways so that the risk that you're taking for your opponent to counterplay you is very low. Like I think there's always, because the board is big, but it's not that big. The board is smaller than it's ever been, with ranges of everything, spells, shooting, and objectives going down. You're going to be in the same space as your opponent more often than not, and they will have counterplay. It is your job as the player and the general to make that counterplay percentage very small. Make it 11 or a 12-inch counter charge. Make it so they have to roll 6 on that redeploy to mess your thing up. You know what I mean? Like if you're picking aggressive battle tactics, you have to be obviously like aggressive with them, where you're getting in and making sure like they're not messing up your plan. Always expect your opponent to make the correct decision. You never want to be assuming that they're going to make the incorrect decision. And
Sun Tzu, yeah.
Sun Tzu. I don't even know if he said that. I don't know if that's one of his rules.
He definitely did. I'm just I'm memeing. That's the battle tactic episode. Like we said, we're going to be talking about deployment a lot next episode, but the title of the next episode is going to be how to win Age of Sigmar 4th edition. Oh yeah.
Because we're going to be talking about primary, we're going to be talking about battle tactics. That's why we wanted to talk about these two first, so we're only referencing them. But we're super excited about that one because I think that is going to be kind of the accumulation of all of the lessons that we've learned so far, and a masterclass as I sit down and take notes from James. The score of the battle tactics.
But I do score them. I try.
You do score them statistically. I'd like to look at your app and see how many battle tactics you on average score.
Many. I try to score them all the time.
Are there any final notes you have on battle tactics that you haven't said yet?
No, I don't think so. I like it. I like it. 4th is a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it a lot.
4th is a lot of fun.
And I'm excited for our next episode. So
me too.
Make sure you guys tune in. Let us know what battle tactics you like. Let us know your thoughts on the battle tactics. It's a very different system. So let us know what you think down in the comments. If you have some favorites, some not so favorites like me.
If you have any fun stories about how your friend messed you up with the battle tactic, by like redeploying off an objective
or killing your Carnosaur with Scraggot,
or punching a Carnosaur.
Disrespectful. It's just disrespectful. He ran into me, rude, whipped super hard, and then I killed him with a tiny goblin.
I hate it. That man is sitting on the bench. I ordered a salon that night. I'm like, you are not worth $330. You sit on that bench.
You got killed by Scragrod.
You got killed by Scragrod. You got cut from the team. Oh, good times. But yeah, I highly recommend everyone go and read your rules. They're free on the app. So go and read the battle tactics for your Grand Alliance. Understand them fully and absolutely understand how your opponent can mess you up and always expect them to do it. Like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. Bye-bye, everyone.
See ya.